Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair.
And I'm Tim Deanna, enduring it in search for credit.
Wait, who are you again?
Tim Deanna, of Tim Deanna the Reviews and Something Cinematic. You know, the guy who's had a review show longer than you.
Oh, right. Sorry, it's just that you kind of look like someone else.
Don't say I look like Linkara.
Well, you do look like...
Oh, bite me, Weird Al.
You know what? Fuck it, let's just get on with the movie.
You're right, time's a wasting, and we've got to talk about the 1956 film Godzilla King of Monsters.
1956? Godzilla came out in 1954.
True, but the original Godzilla, while hit in Japan, was not the film that took America by storm, as it was only gained a limited release in certain Japanese communities. When most people on this side of the pond saw the original Kaiju, it was the American release retitled Godzilla King of Monsters, which didn't hit theaters until 1956.
Huh. They certainly took their sweet time dubbing an audio track.
If that's all they did, I venture to agree with you. However, the American studio, well, let's just say they went all out on the translation effort.
How so?
Gojira was truly the granddaddy of Kaiju films, as its structure and pacing matched very closely to how the genre is treated to this day. Of course, in America in the mid-50s, this was a very peculiar way to show a movie. So Jewel Enterprises went ahead and reconstructed the film in a major way, rearranging events, adding their own protagonists with a ton of new scenes, and yet still cutting so much from the original production, the runtime is actually over 15 minutes shorter. Was it something I said?
That's it, you take it from here.
Now hold it right there. I did not go through all the trouble to set up this crossover just so you can turn tail and leave at the first thing that looks remotely unpleasant.
Well, I'm sorry, but I've seen the original Godzilla, and I'm not too anxious to spend a review watching it get butchered.
And you'll be wise to note on Section 7 of page 41, Clause Gamma, which clearly states that your approval is unnecessary and dissent is hereby null and void.
Why the hell did I sign that?
Just like all the others, you heard Godzilla, and higher brain function ceased.
Okay, let's take a look at Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and hope that at least most of the story is intact. After the opening title set to the famous Godzilla roar, we cut to a completely different movie.
Once a city of 6 million people. What has happened here was caused by a force which, up until a few days ago, was entirely beyond the scope of man's imagination.
Well, that didn't take long. Also, what the fuck? That didn't happen until the middle of the movie!
Spoiler alert? The film wastes no time introducing us to the new star, Raymond Burr.
Oh, come on, him?
What's wrong with Raymond Burr? He was already a prominent face in Hollywood and would go off to play Perry Mason in the TV series Perry Mason, followed by the made-for-TV movie series Perry Mason. He was freaking Perry Mason!
Who cares about any of that? He was Barney in Bride of the Gorilla.
So what? It's not like he plays Barney in this movie.
My name is Steve Martin.
See? He plays Steve Martin.
You mean Steve Martin?
No. Steve Martin was like 11 years old when this movie was made. Though it does sound weird saying his name in this context, doesn't it?
Be that as it may, will I end up wishing that it was that Steve Martin in this movie?
Possibly.
I was headed for an assignment in Cairo when I stopped off in Tokyo for a social call.
The hell direction was he going from America to Cairo, where Tokyo could possibly be a minor miscellaneous stop along the way?
Would you cut it out? We really haven't started this movie yet.
Fine. Steve Martin knocks himself out for no apparent reason. So he awakens the next day in another scene plucked from the middle of this movie. This introduces us to Emiko Yamane, played by Momoko Kochi in the original film, and miscellaneous body double with no face in the American version.
Your father, is he all right?
Yes. He's meeting with the security officials now.
How? Why?
Calm down, Decker. I'll take it from here. This haphazard editing is meant to establish that Steve happens to know all the important characters from the movie, just in time for his flashback to go all the way back to the beginning of the film.
This morning, it would have been impossible for anyone to convince me that I would ever see Tokyo like this again.
And then right back to added scenes of the movie being explained to the audience.
Brilliant. As Steve was only here for an extended layover, they must explain how he gets involved in the event so quickly. As such, he is taken from customs to meet up with security officer Tomo Iwanaga for questioning. As Steve is a journalist, they feel it would be best if he didn't publicize the strange events going on in the seas, but tell him anyway.
At 3:30 this morning, a ship from Tokyo was literally wiped from the surface of the ocean in a matter of seconds. It said there was a blinding flash of light.
Okay, while I didn't in the original, I could see how the radio operators could tell them about the flash, but how exactly did they go about informing them of their own disappearance?
Like this. And we're gone.
Gone, sir?
Yes, completely gone.
Where did you go?
I can't tell you that.
Why not?
Because we're gone. You're breaking up. I can't hear. We're not here. After this, the officer decides to bring Steve into the Coast Guard's radio room, which clearly does not permit civilians, so that he can manage to overhear that they intend to send out a rescue team to look for survivors.
Hey, wait a minute, the rescue ship did find survivors. 3 survivors. And then it sank. In fact, that whole thing took place before this scene in the radio room.
Yeah.
In any case, Steve shows his understanding for the sensitive situation by blinding the story over to United World News.
8 ships obliterated by mysterious blinding flash of fire.
Okay, I have to admit that's a much larger number than what we've seen in either version of the movie.
Radio reports from stricken ships gave the same message.
How much variation did you expect out of, holy shit, we're all gonna die?
They finally get around to showing the 3 survivors, but only to mention that they have horrifying burns and die anyways. With all of Japan in an uproar over unsafe waters, they call the one man who may yet save the country.
Dr. Yamani, Japan's leading paleontologist.
That could have been worse. They could have found a pterodactyl bat and called an ornithologist.
水爆の洗礼を受けながらもなおかつ生命を保っているゴジラを何をもって
I'm afraid my Japanese is a little rusty.
Okay, Steve, I'll explain. This is the scene where everyone wants to know how to kill Godzilla, but the scientist is telling them that instead they should try to study the creature.
Dr. Yamani is suggesting to the officials that they question the natives of a small island.
Bullshit! When this conversation takes place, the island's already destroyed!
You have to understand, they're speaking Japanese, so it could mean anything.
I'm having a hard time figuring out whether or not the editor was creative or racist. Either way, we jump to Odo Island, as strange foreigner with no reason to be privy to anything going on, Steve Martin, inexplicably appears to be the only one the Japanese trust to question the natives of the island. Here we learn of the old legend involving a monster in the sea, whose appetite is immeasurable.
They believe their Godzilla is responsible for all the ship disasters?
They're certain of it.
Okay, dragging Stevie here all over Japan is one thing, but why exactly do they need to keep miscellaneous security officer there with him?
It's to legitimize his presence. Surround him with Japanese men, and nobody will know the scenes were filmed in California. They stick around long enough to witness the mysterious typhoon. Fortunately, despite them being outside with nothing but rickety tents, the winds aren't nearly as bad on their set. At least not until Godzilla shows up and smashes a few buildings. Steve gets back to the mainland quick enough to hear that they should investigate the island. Again. And then it's back to Odo Island.
Amico, a trilobite.
Where they discover a new detail, that Godzilla evidently hails from prehistoric times.
Really? That is a lot like Gamera.
Yeah, Decker. When people say that Gamera is a ripoff to Godzilla, that's sort of because Gamera is a ripoff to Godzilla.
No time to dwell as Godzilla is near, so we must run! Except the American, who is too important to run. However, they soon learn their rifles and pitchforks won't cut it against this creature, so they must run! Except the American, who is too important to run. I'm not sure if they were trying to make him look badass or stupid.
Who, Godzilla? Because... yeah, that's not the best way to be introduced to the creature.
The Godzilla hand puppet has googly eyes.
Despite being enormous, the beast manages to slip away undetected, giving us the opportunity to discuss Godzilla's origins.
It can safely be assumed that 2 million years ago, this Brontosaurus and other ancient reptiles roamed the Earth.
You're about 63 million years off there.
It was known as the Jurassic Age.
Make that 143 million years. He goes on to basically say Tiktaalik is from this time period instead of 375 million years ago, and Godzilla being amphibious is somehow an example of said creature, and this painting is supposedly a photograph.
I have to say, it's awfully convenient that they brought the paleontologist along, even when they just got the tiniest bit of evidence that they might need one.
Yeah, even though every last thing he said was wrong, at this point I'm surprised that he actually recognized the trilobite and didn't assume it was a Reese cup.
That's enough exposition for now. So an argument breaks out for no desirable reason, and we go to a phone call forcing Steve into Dr. Surizawa's circle of friends, merely as a means to segue into him showing off his science skills to Emiko. Which seems to be even more disturbing than the paleontologist.
The hell did he do? Invoke intelligent design?
The world must not know of this. Promise to keep my secret.
The fuck?
It's even worse. He invented the bad dubophone.
In any case, she can't tell, so it's probably going to come in handy during the climax. For now, though, they spot Godzilla in Tokyo Bay, and we get to watch as iconic scenes are drained of all emotion. Godzilla destroys a train, kills hundreds, but Steve-O here is a man, and men show no emotion.
Being a good sport, Godzilla leaves for no apparent reason, giving the people enough time to build a new defense. A massive grid of high-voltage electrical wires spanning the entire perimeter of Tokyo Bay.
How the hell did they manage to build that in a single day?
Come on, do you really think construction would take that long in the original Kaiju flick? After the area is evacuated, spare the soldiers and the all-important American, Godzilla shows just how useless their efforts are as he both shrugs off the electricity and takes the opportunity to show off his now trademark ability, nuclear breath.
I can hardly believe what has just happened.
Yeah, your dry line deliveries managed to spoil another scene. Great.
You have to admit, Raymond Burr does give better close-ups than Godzilla.
Still, the Tokyo destruction scene stands up as a spectacle of special effects for the time, made all the more impressive by the fact that this was filmed in Japan in the 50s.
Die!
Hey, wait, did he just tell everyone to die?
If he did, it sounds like at least one person listened.
This is it, George. Steve Martin signing off from Tokyo, Japan.
Yes! Yes! Kill him! Oh yes! Happy ending after all!
You do realize the movie started after this scene with him alive. He's clearly alive.
Don't ruin it for me! In a last-ditch effort to quell the threat, they send in the Jets to shoot Godzilla down. Strangely though, they keep missing despite how friggin' huge of a target he is. Eventually he just leaves, bringing us back to where the movie decided to start.
Anything new develop?
Nothing new will develop unless
Unless what?
I was shown a terrible secret, which is probably the only weapon which could destroy Godzilla.
Excuse me?
Yep, it's not something she tells her fiancé in a secluded area. In this version, she tells everyone in a crowded room.
Hold on though, besides that problem, if this whole movie had been a big flashback, then how the hell did Steve possibly know that she was shown something when he just found out right now?
Creepy was right. You find the weirdest things to complain about in movies about 300-foot-tall monsters. But now that the one flashback's over, we cut to Emiko's flashback where she saw Dr. Serizawa's invention at work, the oxygen destroyer, which doesn't seem to destroy oxygen as much as it annihilates all living things in water.
He made me promise never to tell what I had seen.
You may want to leave that part out, Emiko. You're advertising to the world that you're not exactly trustworthy.
I thought the fact that she was blabbering in front of dozens of witnesses made that obvious enough. But oh, what a shame! Steve can't join them to convince the Doctor to use the oxygen destroyer, so they have to go on their own, and we will have to deal with the unthinkable. A scene mostly intact from the original Japanese production.
You must use your oxygen destroyer against Godzilla.
No.
I mean, aside from the horrendous dub job.
You have your fear, which might become reality. And you have Godzilla, which is reality.
And don't forget Steve Martin. He means so much to us. Where would we be without his films like The Jerk or The Man with Two Brains?
That's still not quite enough to get him to agree, so his TV turns itself on just in time for a dirge as sung by an army of schoolgirls. Something about this scene seems unintentionally horrifying. Whatever it is, though, it brings Serizawa to agree to use the oxygen destroyer, although he intends to make sure it is only one time.
And for Tokyo's sake, let's hope his memory is as good as it claims it to be. The final confrontation comes in short order, as they track Godzilla's location, bring a huge chunk of oxygen destroyer, and dive into the depths after him. It doesn't take long for them to find their target, possibly because the American edit trimmed the scene way down as well.
They trimmed the climax? Oh, that's just great. Exactly how much of the conversation between these two guys made the cut?
Oh, none of it.
One diver is up. It is Ogata. Dr. Serizawa has not yet started his ascent.
At least they remember to show the oxygen destroyer going about destroying the fuck out of the oxygen, along with all life in the water at the time. Of course, to keep the formula from being ever used again, Serizawa takes his own life, effectively erasing two potential world destroyers at once. It still gets me that they actually managed to kill Godzilla.
Really? Generally speaking, movies tend to have resolutions.
But they killed Godzilla! With science!
Oh, come on, it's not as bad keeping Barugan at bay with a garden hose. Besides, look on the bright side. Right before the movie closes, the all-important paleontologist notes that... Oh, wait. No, that was the Japanese version. Never mind. Happy ending!
They removed the dark undertones from the ending?
Sure did.
Godzilla! Godzilla is a landmark film in the world of cinema, as evidenced by the fact that the American studio could butcher the film this badly, and yet it still was a phenomenon of the 50s. That's not to say I appreciate what has been done here. While I don't think the original movie is perfect, none of the changes in this version were for the better. Effectively, what they did was insert Raymond Burr as a middleman between the audience and the film, as he spends the majority of the running time simply explaining to the audience what is going on in the movie. Of course, he gets it wrong half the time, but still. While the studio's attempt to shoehorn him into an already completed film can be admired from a standpoint of editing skill, it's still jarring and only serves to remind you that this movie's been fucked with. So if any of you out there want to watch the original Godzilla, get the Japanese version from 1954. This is simply a different movie, albeit one that uses clips from the first. The story is quasi-intact, and the city stomping mostly there, but the amount of problems caused by shoving Hollywood footage into a Toho film make this more a film to find unintentional humor in, coming in at 2 Godzilla paintings out of 5.
I'll admit, if you're a Kaiju fan or an active movie watcher, you should have caution sitting through the 1956 version of Godzilla. The way it is set up makes the film feel more like a highlight show and less like a monster movie, which is a problem, seeing that it takes away from the 1954 film's tone. However, I can't say this film isn't without its good merits, as the film seems like a different cut to the original movie. While Raymond Burr is there for the sake of narrating to the American audience, I don't think he was too distracting. He managed to come off as an outsider looking in and brought a different perspective to the story of Godzilla. And yes, the effects are corny, but it was the 50s, so I'm lenient on that. If anything, I think the movie captures the bigger scenes of Godzilla, if only some of them. So in this case, I recommend watching the 1954 film first, and then watching this version. The best way to look at Godzilla King of Monsters is that it's just a variation to a more solid film, and nothing more, causing destruction and dismay with 3 oxygen destroyers out of 5.
Okay, you've had your fun. Now, if you don't mind, I've got more movies to get to.
Hold on just 1 second, Decker. Before you leave, there's something I have to tell you.
Like what?
You notice on your contract at page 42, section Zeta, that there's a charge to review the worst Godzilla movie ruined by an American studio.
So what? We just reviewed that!
Oh, no. Not the worst Godzilla movie.
You don't mean...
What the hell am I saying? I don't want to review this movie! What have I done? Crap, I gotta stop this. I gotta find... Okay, I'll stop it before we cut the...